Hi everyone, it's Shar. Welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you are new here. I have a cold and I'm on my period, which is the perfect time to film this video, which is about 11 spicy romances to keep you warm this winter. The title is obviously a joke. I love romance. I love erotica as well, and I want to recommend to you some of my favorite romance books with a lot of spice in them. For me, this means that the book has more than one sex scenes. Perhaps we explore some different kinks throughout them, but I don't want to have a super long intro. So let's just jump into my 11 recommendations if you are looking for a spicy romance book. Now, these are in no particular order. If at any point you notice me looking off to the side like this, by the way, it's because I have a really bad habit of not remembering characters' names. As soon as a book is over, I don't remember a character's name. Even sometimes while I'm reading the book, I will not remember the character's name. So whenever you see me looking to the side, it's to make sure that I am getting the character's name correct. As I mentioned, these are in no particular order. I just wrote them down in my little planner in the order in which I remembered them and they stood out to me. So let's jump into them. One of the first recommendations I have for you is The Roommate by Brandy Bush. Now, this book I would classify as like mostly erotica. The summary of this book doesn't tell me the name of our main female character, but we're following a main character who is roommates with this girl named Yvonne. And our heroine has nowhere to go for her school break. They are both at university. So Yvonne invites her back to hang out with her family, the U's. And as soon as our character gets there, she notices that Mr. and Mrs. U are kind of giving her a little bit of a look. You know, they're clearly interested in her. She's assuming like nothing happens, and every night she can hear them having sex in her bedroom. She can hear them through the walls, and she decides to masturbate. But she's very loud when she masturbates, and that also fuels the U's and their sexual tension for each other. Then Mr. and Mrs. U and our main female character have the opportunity to have some banging. This is mostly them just kind of exploring their sexual tension and having sex, and our main female character coming into her own sexuality and what she does and does not like in the bedroom. It does get very spicy, and it was just a really good time. My next book is King Size by Jessica Cain. This will be a surprise to those of you who are not new to my channel, because I've mentioned many times before, some of my issues with many of Jessica Cain books is that we have a barely legal female character and a very adult man who not only is with our female character, which is his own thing, but very much enjoys that her female character is barely legal. Now, I don't mind an age gap most of the time, but I don't like an age gap when it feels predatory, especially because oftentimes in many of the Jessica Cain books that I've read, the male characters have fantasized about their female heroines at some point when they were underage, which is a hell to the fuck no for me. But the good news with King Size is that is not the case. We are following Rex and Britta. Britta is next in line for the throne. This is kind of like a historical romance, and Rex is her bodyguard essentially. He's sworn to protect her, but Britta is like, you're sexy and I want to fuck you. So Rex eventually gives into his equal desire to fuck her, and they go off and they have many sexy times together. But it is incredibly short. It is a novella, but there are many sex scenes for you to go in and enjoy. And if you're not familiar with Jessica Cain, one of the main kinks that she plays around with is the daddy kink. So if the daddy kink is not your thing, then maybe I don't recommend this. But I love this book specifically because Rex is a plus size male hero. I feel like we don't get that often enough, and I love seeing like their relationship come together. We also have the tiny girl and giant man situation going on, so again, that's not your thing. This probably will not work for you. And we also have breeding. I think breeding kink is in there, and that is a common theme in Jessica Cain books. Next, we have one of my favorites, which is The Witch's Wolves by Ellie Mae McGregor. This is one of the other polyamorous romance books here, and let me just read you the first tagline. Little Red Riding Hood is all grown up and she's queer. So this follows Manon. I am definitely butchering that, so my apologies. I do not think that's correct. But she is kind of exiled from her town, and she's wearing like this red cloak, hence the Little Red Riding Hood thing. She's running through the woods seeking safety and refuge, and she finds it in this little cottage. But inside this little cottage are two male wolves, and these wolves are very much in love with each other and in a relationship, but find themselves with an inexplicable attraction to Manon, our female character, and this follows their relationship as they begin to explore a sexual relationship together, but also as they slowly fall in love. This was a cute story, but also hella spicy. I had a really great time reading this. I love seeing some polyamorous rep in books, and I just think that the way that the two wolves interacted with Manon and like cared for her was so sweet and so fun to like read and experience. So definitely recommend this. Moving on to one of the few human romances on this book. Y'all, I love me some monster romance, and if a human man has made it onto this list, that should tell you that's a good man. Okay, that is a great fictional man. We have, take a hint, Danny Brown. Now, I read the entire Brown Sisters trilogy throughout this year and last year. This is by Talia Hibbert. I love the Brown Sisters trilogy. It stands as like one of my all-time favorite romance trilogies. Danny wasn't my favorite book, but I do think that Danny was the spiciest book. She has this kind of attraction to this man named Zafir. Zaf is like in love with Danny, but Danny's like, I just want to fuck you. So one day there's like a fire drill in the building, and Danny gets stuck in the elevator, and Zaf comes and saves her, and he rushes out the building with her in his arms, and it becomes this whole like news publicity thing. They decide to fake date because Zaf owns his own nonprofit talking about sports and mental health in sports, specifically for men as well. And he's like, I have this charity, this will be really great for me for publicity, let's do this. And Danny agrees because she wants to fuck him. So they enter a friends with benefits situation at some point. This has a lot of really sexy scenes in it. Talia Hibbert can really write a sex scene as well. It was just really sexy, really steamy times, especially because Danny is very much in touch with like her sexuality and what she wants, and isn't afraid to ask for what she wants in the bedroom. And Zafir is very willing and eager to please. It has some fantastic sex scenes. In my opinion, some of the best sex scenes in the entire trilogy. So if you're gonna read the Brown Sisters trilogy and you want some really spicy scenes, you're gonna find them in all of them. But in my memory, Danny Brown was the one who had the chef's kiss sex scenes in the book. Moving swiftly on, back to my home territory of monster romance, we have a Gillian Graves book. This is Blood Moon by Gillian Graves. This explores some interesting kinks, okay? Let me tell you the premise of this book. So in this book, we are in the same world as her Rook series, which is a gargoyle romance series, but this time we are following Hazel, who is a witch, and Vlad, who is a vampire. Now, Hazel owns this bar for the strange. In this world, the strange are the mythical creatures who occupy the world unbeknownst to the humans. So she owns this kind of bar that's a safe space for the strange to come, hang out, hook up, find friendships, find connections. Vlad has the same dream, but he opens a giant kind of nightclub across the street from her called the Black Door. Now, Vlad's investors are very aggressive, and that causes a lot of tension between Vlad and Hazel. I wouldn't call this enemies to lovers. They're not enemies. It is more rivals to lovers, but it is a novella, and I would classify this as an erotica. So there's no slow burn. From the first scene, these two get down and dirty right in the shower, thanks to the help of a beautiful party potion that Hazel has taken, which makes everything that she experiences heightened, including her arousal. Lots of kinks in this book. We open up with them fucking in the shower while she's under the influence of this potion. She completely still has her awareness. It's not affecting any of that. It just heightens any pleasure and sensations that she is feeling. Vlad is a mind reader, but only from the person he just drank from. Does that make sense? Like if he drank your blood recently, he's able to read your mind. So Hazel in her lust-induced haze is like, fuck yes, drink from me. And he's able to read her mind, and because he's able to read her mind, he's able to fulfill her fantasies. Hazel is a badass plus size main character. I believe she's like 6 feet tall. She's curvaceous, and Vlad is fucking obsessed. And in this book, they mainly fuck. That's mainly what happens. There's a whole rival situation between their two like business establishments, but mainly it's sexy times. Hazel has a bit of a fantasy for being an exhibitionist, so she really likes the idea of being caught having sex. Vlad is a vampire, so he doesn't have a reflection. There's literally a scene in this book where they're fucking on the floor of his nightclub, and the ceiling in his nightclub is mirrored, but he doesn't have a reflection, so Hazel gets to watch herself like be fucked seemingly by nothing, and like gets to witness her own orgasm. And then they switch positions, and Vlad gets to watch the same thing, watch Hazel take her pleasure from him. Vlad also has a thing for coming in Hazel's mouth, forcing Hazel to open her mouth so that he can watch her swallow. Yeah, I loved it though. Again, a super spicy romance I highly recommend, especially if you're not really looking for the plot. The plot is mainly not really there. You're there to watch these two characters fuck. So there you go. Moving on to the second Gillian Graves book on this list, that is book number 6, which is Titan. Titan is the gargoyle romance that I mentioned Blood Moon is set in. Now, in the first book, Titan, we are following Juliana and we're following Titan. Titan is the leader of this like ancient gargoyle clan. They are searching for this like tablet that has their power and like connection to something. I'm not clear on that. I just remember the sexy times. And Juliana is a sugar baby and a lot of financial debt with a lot of family trauma behind her. She's looking for a sugar daddy. Titan can take a human form. She has information that Titan needs, so Titan approaches her and they enter this relationship where Juliana does eventually find out that Titan is not human. He's a fucking gargoyle, literally made of stone. But my girl's into that because not only does this make his dick rock hard, my boy also has a tail. Yes, he does have a tail. He uses that to bring her all kinds of pleasure. This also has a daddy kink. We have a soft dom. We have the spoiling kink as well. He buys her lots of stuff. The sex is really great. If any of what I just mentioned is like a kink that you're interested in, would highly recommend that you check out Titan. There is a plot in there though. Like, it is a well-developed world. If you're looking for just smut or just vibes, you're not gonna find that in Titan. You'll find that, but you will also find plot. So I would encourage you to read this if you're looking for a really good fantasy romance with a lot of sex scenes in it. And if the daddy kink and tail play sounds like something you might enjoy. Moving on to perhaps what is one of my favorite sapphic books ever, we have Count Your Lucky Stars by Alexandria Bellfleur. This is a second chance romance. This book we are following Margot and Olivia. Now, Margot and Olivia used to have this fling in high school, but it was very unclear because neither of them actually defined what they wanted. They had this like miscommunication thing going on, and Olivia ran off with her boyfriend, and they eventually get married. It's many years later when this story starts, and Olivia is recently divorced and she is planning a wedding. But the wedding that she's planning is not only high profile, it is the wedding in which Margot is the maid of honor. A series of unfortunate or fortunate events, if you're the reader here, brings Margot and Olivia together, and they quickly fall back into bed and fall back in love. I love this book, not just for their romance, I think that they're super cute, but because Margot is also a bit of a dom. She is. She likes dirty talk. She likes bringing Olivia pleasure. She knows Olivia's body really well. And I'm going to encourage you to listen to the audiobook if you're comfortable doing that, because Miss Margot whispers some very, very dirty things in your ear. Moving right along to the 8th book on this list, we're coming to the end. We have Sweet Berries by C.M. Nacosta. Now, before I went into this book, I had no idea that C.M. Nacosta was the one who wrote Morning Glory Milking Farm. Yes, that book. And if you don't know what milking is, I encourage you to not look it up. I'm not here to yuck on your yum, but you will find some images that either will entice you or horrify you. So disclaimer out of the way, let me tell you about Sweet Berries. I listened to this as an audiobook. So there you go, your second audiobook recommendation if you're looking for some spice in your life this winter or any point whenever you're watching this video. Sweet Berries is about this woman named Grace. And Grace has just moved to this small town in this world where mythical creatures are not only known, they're very well integrated. They're integrated into society. Well integrated is up to debate. So she is fucking horny as hell. Literally one of the first lines in this book is, "I'm too horny to fake." She has this will they won't they thing with one of her co-workers who is a minotaur who works at the milking farm. He's there to get milked, and he really wants to fuck her. But my girl's like, don't bury a bone in your own backyard. Like, I don't want to sleep with this man. I'm too horny to think. So after lots of foreplay with this man, she's like, no. She takes herself home, but she's really worked up. So she decides to masturbate. And as she masturbates, she hears this loud thump in a tree outside of her window. And through the noises that comes after that, she comes to realize that someone is watching her masturbate. And instead of freaking out, my girl is like, this works for me. This works for me. She continues to masturbate, and the person outside of her window watches her do that, and that helps her get off. This escalates to the point where she eventually runs into this person who is a Mothman. Don't look up Mothman. Look at the cover. This is what he looks like. If you search Mothman, you will be horrified. Don't Google it. Don't do it. But anyway, she eventually meets this man, and this man is so guilty and so apologetic about what they've been doing, even though she's been really getting her rocks off to it. He's like, I shouldn't be watching you do this. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to do that. But he's a sweetheart. Despite his peeping Tom waves, he's a sweetheart. He is like a dork. He loves research and science and is pretty awkward around people, but he feels he has to apologize to her and take her on a date, and she agrees, and lo and behold, they not only have sexual chemistry, they also have romantic chemistry, and throughout the book we see them fall in love. But not only do we see them fall in love, we see them have lots of sex. My man is big. Mothmen only have sex like once or twice a month because their stamina is long. Once their erection is at full mass, it takes like 16 hours for it to go down. So these two fuck well into the night, and at many points my girl's like, my guts have been fucking rearranged. Not only that, but he has a vibrating cock because of his wings. You know, Mothman. He does that and it makes his dick vibrate. He's also a bug. So his tongue can kind of unroll, and if you've ever seen a sex toy that can like suction, his tongue has that ability. So because it can unroll and suction, he can eat her out at the same time that he is fucking her. But it's all about her pleasure. He's there for the ride, but mainly he wants to please her. Their relationship is super cute, and their sex is very hot. We're on to Fire in Her Eyes, which is one of the books in Ruby Dixon's Fire Blood Dragon series. In the Fire Blood Dragon series, we are in a post-apocalyptic world where dragons have come out of the sky, fully enraged and completely not aware of their surroundings, and essentially torment and torch all of humanity to the ground. And we are with the lucky few survivors, or unlucky, depending on your perspective. In this one, we are following one of the only female dragons in this world, and that is what I love. So in this world, female dragons need to be dominated. They are the most aggressive and the strongest of the dragon species, and when they want to take a mate, they also have a mating instinct like their male counterparts. But for the female dragons, their mate needs to conquer them. They are not going to take a weak mate if they want to mate with someone, and that mate has to prove to them that they have the ability to defend them and their families by taking on the female dragon herself. Now we're in the human realm, and our female dragon, I'm sorry, the summary doesn't tell me their names, and I don't remember their names. Our female dragon is affected by being on Earth. Being on Earth for these dragons really like muddles their minds, almost brings them to the point of insanity. They literally cannot think straight at all, but she senses her mate in this human man. This human man has insight and information, so he knows that dragons have been mated before. He has this information, and he comes to understand that the reason this female dragon is stalking him is because she thinks that he's his mate. And in order to claim her and get her to stop this, he has to conquer her. But in his point of view, he's like, I'm like this 6-foot man, and this is a giant fucking dragon who can whoop my ass on any fucking day. How am I going to conquer her? So this story is, as you can imagine, it has some dom and sub themes throughout it. We are following this perspective of this female dragon who is so much more powerful than her male mates, but how he has to claim her in the bedroom. I love this because we have the soft dom and the brat kink, and that is one of my favorite things. There aren't as many sex scenes in this as some of the other books I've recommended on this list. This is definitely a fantasy romance as opposed to like just an erotica where it's mainly sex, but there are plenty of sex scenes in here. High wind, the fuck. That I think will be really interesting to read and definitely bring that spice factor. I rarely ever find romances that do the soft dom with a bratty sub kink well, and this book I think masters that. Now the next book that I have to recommend for you comes with a little bit of a caveat because this is a male-male romance written by a woman. I encourage you to also read male-male romances written by gay men as well, and written by men in general, because there's a lot of conversation to be had about women fetishizing male-male relationships. So that's like my little caveat there. Please do your research and learn a little bit more about this. But I'm gonna recommend Junkie because it is for sure one of the spiciest male-male romances that I have read. Now, Junkie is about a man named Drew. Drew is in his 20s and he loves race cars. He is an adrenaline junkie. It is his favorite thing to do in all the world is to like race and fix cars. He does street racing and he wants to work for like NASCAR or something like that. And he has a best friend. I don't know the best friend's name because it's not in the summary, but we'll call him his best friend. He and his best friend have a really, really close relationship. But things start to develop because Drew realizes that the feelings he has for his best friend aren't necessarily platonic. And this causes Drew to question his sexuality as he decides to enter a relationship with his best friend. Their relationship is super sweet and their sex is incredibly steamy. Again, I encourage you to check out some Own Voices male-male stories as well. They have such a sweet relationship. This book has some of the best like chemistry I've read. I was rooting for them so much, which I always am in romances, but for them, their chemistry was fantastic, and I loved the whole friends to lovers arc and this exploration and discovery of their own individual sexualities as well. This was just overall a fantastic time. I just remember their relationship so clearly and how sweet they were together. And what I will tell you is that there is a sequel to this book. Don't read the sequel. Just don't. It is full of so much misogyny and sexism that comes from these two male characters who for all of a sudden, some reason, hate women. Like, aggressively hate women in their stories. Like, don't recommend the sequel, but if you want a spicy male romance, this is a great book to check out. I'm gonna have an honorable mention for Meet Cute Club. It's not officially on this list because there aren't that many sex scenes, and I would just classify this as a really cute romance. But Meet Cute Club follows two characters, one who runs like a romance book club because he loves romance and loves erotica, the other who owns a book club and kind of pokes fun at him for being so into romance, but eventually joins joins the book club and these two fall in love. There's a very steamy sex scene with them in the kitchen and him, in the character's words, rearranging his guts over the counter. But there's minimal sex scenes in this book. It's just a really great time, and it's written by Jack Carbon. So if you're looking for another male-male romance written by a man, I would recommend that one. And my final book is one that I literally just finished yesterday. And the fact that it is on this list should tell you a lot about how fucking good this book was. This book is Pool Boy by Nikki Sloan. I was not expecting what I got in this book, but when I tell you that they fuck every other chapter, they fuck every other chapter. They do. So this book follows this woman named Erica, and it is her birthday. She and her husband really have not had any sexual intimacy in a long time. It's her birthday. She decides, I want some birthday sex. So her husband is working late at his law firm, so she goes to surprise him in this new lingerie that she just bought. She's feeling her best. She's going in, but lo and behold, her husband is cheating on her with his male boss. Now, her husband obviously is struggling with his sexuality. They end up getting divorced, and she is back on the market 10 months later when this book picks up. She has a pool boy, and her pool boy is incredibly attractive. He's in his mid-20s. Is an age gap of about 20 years or so because she's in her mid to late 40s and he's in his mid-20s, but he's always had like this big crush on her. And one day he comes to clean her pool thinking that she's not home, but she is lounging by the pool drinking tequila topless. This leads to our first sex scene, a mutual masturbation sex scene in her house. But did I mention that her pool boy is also her best friend's son? I didn't. Now, if that makes you uncomfortable, if you think that she has helped raise this boy, she has not. She only ever met him when he was graduating from high school, which is when she met her best friend and they first moved to this town. So she has only ever known him from the age of 18 onwards, and he is 24 years old before they ever enter any kind of sexual relationship and before she ever feels anything towards him that isn't, you're my best friend's son. If the wind wants to shut up, that would be great. I hope it's not too loud for you all. I'm sorry if it is, but they, like I said, they fuck every other chapter. Like every other chapter, we have mutual masturbation. He is a bit of a dom with him at times, and she's like, if you come inside of me, you're gonna have to clean up your own mess and eat me out. It was great. There's even a scene where they're fucking in their outdoor shower while their next door neighbor is having a party and they do anal. It's just great because their chemistry is great. I love their relationship and how it really didn't brush over the age gap between them, but acknowledged that there was a lot of love and chemistry between them as well. And she had no interest in him prior to this point, prior to him being 24 years old and in her house as her pool boy. And as I mentioned earlier, for a human man to make it on my spicy books recommendation, that should let you know that Human Man was pretty fun to read about, and I think he treats Erica very well. He has his missteps for sure, but I still really enjoyed it. Again, I'm gonna recommend the audiobook to you because it's dual narrators, and again, he speaks those very, very naughty words right into your ears. So if you're looking for some spicy audiobook recommendations, I would recommend that. Count Your Lucky Stars, and one other one which I recommended earlier and totally forgot about, but you heard me mention it. So that does bring us to the end of this video with the 11 books, I think, with one honorable mention that I would recommend to you if you're looking for some spicy romances to read or listen to this fall/winter as we're approaching December. Thank you so much for watching this video. As always, if you aren't already, I do have some of my other videos linked if you want to check them out before you decide to subscribe, because I would love for you to stick around. It just supports me and my channel, and I shall see you in my next video. Bye.